What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MacMovieGuy.com, and this is an anniversary review? Question mark. It's debatable. We'll talk about it. This is civil action. It's it is it's in the Apple Store with audio description if you're looking for it. You can get it there. And so I did watch this with audio description. I don't know when it's ever going to float, but it's 25 years old, ish. And it's got John Travolta, Robert DuVall, Kathleen Quinlan, John Lithgow, Dan Hedaya, God, Tony Shaloub, James Gandolfini, and just a whole bunch of people were in this. I'm sure I'm missing people like downstream. Like people just kept popping up. I was like, oh, you're in this. Cool. All the way down the list, they even had like when you look into the credits, they even had one of the It's Always Sunny guys just playing like a random teenager. Okay. I was just thinking like, wow, that's, and then they went in, they made it, they made it on up in the world. Rob McElhenney is in this, yeah. So this is based on a true story about a lawyer who has to. He's a personal injury attorney, and John Travolta plays the character and sort of narrates over the film, which kind of blocks the audio description a little bit when that happens. When we get when not only do we get dialogue, but we get narration. But I thought the film is still pretty easy to follow. I think I've only seen this film once in my lifetime, and it was back when this film came out. So I actually, even though like it's one of those films where you just get the vibes of how it's going to end, I still didn't necessarily remember beat for beat. And I did rely on the audio description to help me get there because I didn't remember everything. I certainly didn't remember the visuals or anything in this film. I just kind of remember like who was in it. And I even had those roles mixed up because I thought Robert DuVall played the judge. He does not. So yeah, this is an Oscar baity Aaron Brockovich type story, but this came out before Aaron Brockovich, where a lawyer kind of risks everything to go after the people who are polluting the water of a town. And Judge Volta did it before Julia Roberts did, but most people just didn't notice this. Directed by Steven Zaillian, who also did Searching for Bobby Fischer, and many other films, and it has like a wide array of a cast in it. So it's really pretty good, especially if you like your legal dramas, especially if you like those, like courtroom scenes and, these triumphant legal dramas. It does all of that. It just hits all those beats. It's predictable in doing that. Because you're like, why would anybody make a movie about this where they lose? That's the whole thing you're thinking the whole time. Is you're like, if this goes nowhere, then why would they have made a movie about it? So that's when I'm saying like you can kind of predict the ending. It's because with pretty much any of these films, you're like, well, obviously it's about holding people accountable on some level. So even if no money ever exchanged hands, they would win just by getting them to have guilt admission or something. Like somewhere, the people being sued are not going to get out of this film scot-free. They wouldn't make a movie about that. The movie doesn't make any sense. So this isn't even spoilers. It's just like, find me that movie because I'd love to watch that movie's just so it could reset my brain into showing like, wow, they made a movie where they lost. They had this case and like kids died of cancer and the company just kind of walked away and nothing happened and ever happened. And so it's not like you can make like a movie about, the Purdue or something like that, right? Because eventually, like, stuff caught up to them. Like, you could make a movie, like a bubble movie about like a certain period of time where you're like, you don't realize it's coming. So maybe there's a movie like that where they're like, oh, we tried to go after them, but I didn't. And still to this day, damn them. You know? And then it's like, psst, by the way, just want to let you know. Eventually, it got there. So, yeah, it's a really strong lead performance from John Travolta. Robert DuVall is obviously always good in like literally everything that he does. I think he got a supporting actor nomination for this. Pretty certain he did. Remembering off the top of my head, I think that's like the sole nomination for civil action. Problem is, I had this. See, I looked at the release year. See, like Apple had it as 1999, and I was like, oh yeah, 1999. That makes sense. You know, when you're trying to remember back in history, you don't always necessarily remember that a film was 1 year off, or that it was, or maybe you did see it in 1999, but what you're watching was Oscar bait from the previous year that had an Oscar qualifying run. And I think that's what this is, because even IMDb has it in as a 1998 film, but then they also have the release date as being like January 8th, 1999 as the official release date of this film, which indicates to me that it had an Oscar qualifying run. That a lot of times those are, you know, brief runs. They don't stay in theaters. They hit the minimum and then they get pulled and then they reopen as a wide release. So a lot of times IMDb will not consider the Oscar qualifying run its initial release. So it even acknowledges that this is a 1990. That's why I was like, 25th anniversary question mark? I reviewed the film anyway, so whatever. It has audio description. That's what kind of the main talking point here. And I thought the audio description was good. If you're looking for good legal drama that you haven't seen before, and you do things on Apple, it's so weird that this has audio description, because I look at some of the things that don't, and I'm like, how did a civil action become a priority? Not that I mean, I think everything should have audio description, but it's kind of weird, because I don't think anybody is ever talking about this film. I feel like I should be making a film about like, why isn't anybody talking about a civil action? It didn't really, like, it didn't rake in the Oscar nominations. It wasn't a huge box office success. Steven Zaillian isn't the kind of director that has amassed a filmography that people are just watching it all the time, where it's like Spielberg or Scorsese, where even their mid films you could make an argument like, well, it's still a Scorsese film, you know. But it has audio description, and I'm like, okay, great. So now I have it. I own it. It was $4.99. It was on sale. It was basically the same price as renting it. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. It was a good watch, good acting, and I revived the experience. 1999 was a really strong year for films. I don't know about 98, when the film was actually for consideration, because I haven't been thinking about 98 because it's not the anniversary year for 98. So I have a perspective. But 99 would have been a bitch for this film to get in. And that's why I was like, of course, yeah, it had to be 99, because that's why I wouldn't have gotten any Oscar nominations, because my God, it's up against American Beauty and The Green Mile and, you know, Fight Club. Just like a whole bunch of great movies came out towards the end of the year. The Insider. I'm just listing like randomly awesome films from the end of the year. But that's not the case. So this is Oscar bait from 98 that bled over, and I think you should watch it. Especially if you like films like this. Like if you got really excited about Mark Ruffalo's Dark Waters, this is your film. This film is for you. I don't know that Robert DuVall needed an Oscar nomination for this, but okay, whatever. I wouldn't say no. You know, he's sort of good in everything, Like this is the point in his career where you could just be like, yeah, well, why not pull him in? Sort of like we do with some of the other actors still today that are up there in age. We're like, yeah, well, they're of course they're good because they're that person, and why not? The category is slim this year. Bring them on in. Anyway, uh, check it out. It's based on a true story. It really did happen, and some kids really did die from drinking water that was toxic. So it's always important to remember that things like this do happen, and companies really don't care about you. And luckily, we have Hollywood, who does care, and they're going to make movies about how much they care. Anyway, that was silly. I'm going to give a Civil Action. I'm going to give it an A minus. Is it like a classic legal drama? No. Is it a really good one? Yeah. It's not like top of the top. It's not. I'm not going to take it to a desert island. It's a really good watch though, and I had a lot of fun with it. So, John Travolta does a really good job here, which is really hard to say nowadays of John Travolta. It's just John Travolta, great acting, seems to be eluding us as film critics to be able to say those words. But he's really good in this. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.